The Antarctic, land of mysteries, lies buried beneath millennia-old layers of eternal ice. Over the past 50 years or so, reports have frequently emerged of peculiar pyramid-shaped structures, mysterious entrances revealing themselves deep within the Antarctic ice, or strange flying objects in the Antarctic skies. Past anomalous events recorded have left countless unanswered questions about the coldest landmass on Earth. There are those who venture to the Antarctic and witness what they shouldn't. Clearly, there is something being concealed beneath, something yet unknown to us. It could be the remnants of an ancient civilization that once flourished, a secretive extraterrestrial outpost, or a site of unimaginable research activities between humans and extraterrestrial beings. All will be revealed in the chillingly mysterious video set beneath the Antarctic ice. In November 1995, a pilot of the U.S. Navy named Brian, along with his squadron, was flying a C-130 aircraft in low-altitude circles over the Marybird Land area. This area is located south of the South Pole, where 15 scientists were conducting research activities. The C-131 approached the South Pole base from another base about a few hundred kilometers to the east. The reason they had to carry out this mission was the mysterious disappearance of the scientists who were working there. The scientists' mission was to communicate with the station daily and report the research results. However, for the past few days, no signals had been transmitted. All participants in the research activities came from multinational organizations, and their disappearance would indeed have unforeseeable consequences. In fact, the area they were researching had extremely harsh weather conditions. There were no dangerous predators around. Therefore, the likelihood of them leaving the base due to an attack was almost impossible. Even if they went out to conduct research tasks, they could not survive more than an hour without protective gear. The airplane circled around, gradually decreasing its radius each day to ensure no area was missed in the search for the scientists. Despite excellent weather and optimal visibility, no signs were found. Eventually, the C-130 landed, and the rescue team was ordered to inspect the base. As usual, when a large, noisy object like a transport plane landed at the base, at least a few people would run out to observe. However, the place now seemed deserted. The scientists had only been brought here about a week ago. In the storage warehouse, they had enough food, water, and even snacks for over a month. Yet now they were gone without a trace. There were no signs of theft or vandalism of food and property. The rescue team went to the control room to check the communication devices. Strangely, everything was normal and stable. They even used the same devices to report. No one was found, and there were no bodies. Everything was normal, and there were no signs of conflict. "Please advise us on what the team should do next," they said. Clearly, they had no clue what to do next. The rescue team returned to the airplane to head back to base. Before leaving, the plane continued to circle, gradually widening its radius to ensure nothing was overlooked. The Antarctic is a perilous place, claiming lives and causing disappearances every year. No one is entirely safe in such an unforgiving environment. While people were discussing the mysterious disappearances of scientists, they suddenly reappeared over a week later. The rescue team and the C-130 received urgent orders to return to base. Those who had just returned sent out distress signals, clamoring to leave. What had happened? In today's world, the Antarctic stands as the most isolated place on Earth. Human research activities barely touch a small fraction of the continent, with 98% of it remaining unexplored. No one knows what lies buried beneath the thick layers of ice kilometers deep. However, despite harsh conditions and limited access, recent discoveries hint at clear signs of extraterrestrial technological activities and undiscovered ancient civilizations. Recent satellite images reveal pyramid-like structures protruding through the ice. It is believed these pyramids are part of a network providing energy to the world, akin to Egypt's Great Pyramid of Giza. Over 90 million years ago, the Antarctic was a lush and thriving land, a fact beyond dispute. However, scientists have also affirmed that it froze over and became inhospitable for life around 12 million years ago. So, who built those pyramids? First, take a look here. This is the Pinkerton map drawn in 1818. The part where the Antarctic should be is blank without any markings. This means the Antarctic was entirely unknown before. It didn't even exist on Earth for people. However, older maps accurately depict the geographical location of the Antarctic and show it wasn't the massive east continent it is today. According to these maps, the Antarctic was a fertile, rich land with a vegetation system rivaling any other place on Earth. Is this true? This peculiar map from the 16th century accurately outlines the northern coastline of the Antarctic before it was covered in ice. It's hard to explain how humans could have known about this continent at a time when they didn't have modern measuring tools like today. And like many other ancient mysteries, it is believed that there was an ancient civilization existing in the Antarctic since ancient times. The existence of a prehistoric civilization in the Antarctic began to interest historians after World War II. This hypothesis can be supported by medieval maps and numerous studies by geological and physics experts. In 1929, an ancient map was found drawn on the skin of an antelope, showing geographical locations very different from what we know today. The map's creator meticulously described the northern coastline of Africa, the southern part of South America, and the northern coastline of Antarctica. One of the most fascinating and mysterious works of cartography is a world map drawn on antelope skin by the Turkish admiral and cartographer Piri Reis in 1513. This map astonished people with its accuracy and detail, especially for areas that were virtually unexplored or unknown at the time. Therefore, this map has been the subject of much debate over nearly a century. As mentioned, the map depicts Antarctica before it was officially discovered. Thus, many speculate that this map may reveal ancient secrets of civilizations lost on our planet. Piri Reis was an outstanding naval officer and skilled cartographer of the Ottoman Empire. He was born around 1465 or 1470 in Gallipoli, a port city on the Dardanelles Strait. He began his seafaring life at a young age, first as a privateer supported by the government, essentially a licensed pirate, and later as part of the Ottoman Navy, where he rose to the rank of admiral. Piri Reis participated in numerous campaigns and naval battles, such as the conquest of Egypt in 1517 and the Siege of Rhodes in 1522. Piri Reis also had a keen interest in geography and maps. He collected many maps and charts from various sources, including Europe, Arabia, China, and India. He also consulted sailors, merchants, and travelers who had visited many places around the world and used that information to compile his own maps and geographical works. In 1513, he completed his most famous work, a world map, which he presented to Sultan Selim Thurwan, the ninth ruler of the Ottoman Empire, as a gift. This map was based on about 20 different sources, some ancient and some contemporary. He claimed to have used a partial copy of a map by Christopher Columbus, now lost, as well as maps from Portuguese, Spanish, Arab, and Indian cartographers. The map accurately and meticulously described South America, and it included annotations in both Turkish and Arabic, the languages of the Ottoman Empire. This map was praised by Sultan Selim and kept in the royal treasury for many years. However, it was eventually forgotten until rediscovered in 1929 in the library of Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The map was then studied by many scholars and experts who were amazed by its quality and accuracy. It was strange not only that Admiral Peary Race could map the Antarctic region accurately 300 years before its discovery, but also why the map depicted the Antarctic region before it was covered by ice. In 1949, an expedition consisting of scientists from England and Sweden explored the southern polar region of the continent and its 1.6 kilometers thick ice sheet. The results confirmed that the portion of the map showing Peary Race's Queen Maud Land was perfectly accurate compared to measurements taken by seismic methods. This indicated that this coastline had been mapped before it was covered by ice. The coincidence is that the Peary Race map was also drawn using the method of longitude and latitude, but historically, the first map of the Earth using this method was drawn by John Harrison, an Englishman, in 1761. So, could people have known that the Earth was spherical over 600 years ago? Mainstream science maintains that the ice covering the surface of the Antarctic is 1 million years old, with the entire northern part of this continent represented as such. Before the ice cover, it can be speculated that the map was drawn 1 million years ago, but this is difficult to explain because humans were not present at that time. So, could the Peary Race map have been pieced together from the remnants of a civilization we have never known? In the book Maps of the Ancient Oceans, published in 1979, Professor Charles Wood argues that the Peary Race map draws from the records of the Mia people, a seafaring tribe. The maps they created were preserved in the libraries of Alexandria and Constantinople during the Fourth Crusade in 1204. These maps were later transported to Europe, including maps of the Americas, the South Pole, and the Antarctic Ocean. It's remarkable that they depicted the Antarctic before it was frozen and how they could measure it so accurately. From the story of the Peary Race map, a hypothesis is raised that there were civilizations that disappeared along with relatively advanced technological capabilities. In 1953, a naval officer sent this map to the U.S. Army Map Research Center to measure and compare it with modern maps. They concluded that this map was extraordinarily accurate and could only have been measured using satellite positioning methods. Therefore, the possibility of a civilization that existed tens of thousands of years ago, living and developing to a relatively high level before the Antarctic was covered by thick layers of ice, raises even more complex questions, suggesting they were ahead of us. For me, it's not complicated at all. They probably always existed deep beneath the icy layers of the Antarctic. And in fact, there is still significant evidence that an ancient civilization once existed, perhaps even still exists, in the Antarctic. The Antarctic was indeed not always an ice-covered landmass as it is today. It may have reached a civilization even more advanced than ours today. In fact, no one knows for sure the structures beneath the thick ice layers in the Antarctic in prehistoric times. Therefore, it's difficult to assert whether the Peary Race map is entirely accurate. However, today, we're not just exploring the mysteries of the ancient Antarctic. Returning to the story at the beginning of this video, the C-130 rescue team was mobilized back to Mary Butland to pick up the scientists who had just returned. Upon arrival, they found everything had been hastily packed and the scientists were running to the aircraft. The scene was horrifying, as if staying there any longer would result in something killing or torturing them. The scientists boarded the plane in absolute silence, with no one exchanging even the smallest of words. Even when the flight crew asked what had happened, no one spoke up. During the 2-hour flight, the atmosphere was suffocatingly silent as the C-130 landed. The scientists were informed they would board another aircraft, but for some reason, they seemed reluctant to move. Someone had to physically escort each person off the plane, unfasten their seatbelts, and lead them out. These individuals had surely witnessed something and were suffering from severe PTSD. By our current definition, post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, is a collection of reactions that may occur in individuals who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event that threatened their life or safety. It could be a car accident or another serious accident, assault or sexual assault, crime, events related to war or torture, or a natural disaster like a wildfire or flood. Most people who experience trauma will have post-traumatic reactions. However, for some individuals, these reactions don't subside within a few days or weeks but persist and disrupt their lives. So, our scientists boarded the second aircraft, saw those specters, and then they vanished from there. Their research equipment was placed in a large, securely locked container. The rescue team was strictly prohibited from entering it under any circumstances. All other equipment from Antarctica was also quickly isolated and sealed until it could be transported elsewhere. At that time, no one knew the equipment would be transferred from the airbase in Ohio. And if you didn't know, the airbase in Ohio is known for housing many classified documents related to unidentified flying objects, UFOs, and UFO sightings from 1947 to 1969. The rescue team was summoned to the command office, where two men in military uniforms, just arrived from Washington, D.C., were waiting. They warned the entire flight crew not to disclose this incident to anyone else, including family members. No scientists went missing, and there was no rescue mission. Nothing of what they had just experienced was true. The crew members were completely fine with this. This wasn't the first time they had to keep silent, but this meeting wasn't about the human-related equipment on the ground. It was about what the crew members saw deep inside the Earth. In 2003, a Navy team was deployed from the base to the Beardmore Glacier region, according to official reports. They were on a routine reconnaissance mission, as the schedule had it, but in reality, it was an escort mission for the scientists to gather more research information and bring him back to the safe command base. It was made very clear to all team members that this research was extremely important, at any cost, even at the risk of sacrificing lives. The entire team was also tasked with ensuring the safety of the scientists. The escort team fully agreed. However, they felt this was a somewhat excessive demand. They saw these scientists as just one of many other scientists gathering information in Antarctica. That was indeed true, but not entirely enough. The escort team approached the landing point. They saw the top of a black octagonal structure protruding from the snow layer. The entire team escorted the scientists to a giant door tens of meters high with an upper angle and strange figures. Some thought it resembled a star map. Additionally, on the door was a triangle symbol with two diagonals crossing the center. This symbol has appeared in many ancient cultures throughout history. Reporter Linda Mountainhouse, who interviewed Spartan and other witnesses, was shown a photograph of a coin found in Mexico City in 1993, which had similar symbols. The tens of meters high and also thick doors opened extremely easily. As the team stepped in after the door closed, silence enveloped them. A strange silence coupled with the vastness of the room, making everything terrifying. It took his team quite some time to traverse the corridor, with the walls emitting a gentle blue light, yet eerie. The walls also bore a series of special characters resembling Egyptian hieroglyphs. When the scientists asked the guide how large the place was, the answer received was 2.7 million square meters. It's equivalent to the entire area of Russia. That space is vast, buried deep under the perpetual ice layer, and this is just one of many such structures across Antarctica. At that time, the giant door was the only entrance leading inside the structure, but many years later, other entrances were found, and the only way to access them is by using extremely large submarines, by navigating under the ice layer, allowing access kilometers deep into Antarctica, unlike the upper layers. Spartan's team had just accessed the lower layers not under human management. They were also required to keep silent about that top-secret base. And now, some of them sit here again to listen to threats about the consequences of spreading unverified information. Rescuing the 15 British scientists was not the first strange mission he'd participated in. Since 1980, he and his team had conducted countless trips to Antarctica, often to supply research stations and transport personnel and cargo. Until one day, a special mission changed everything. Brian received word. His crew was preparing for the most urgent transport possible. A scientist injured at the Davis station. After medical personnel were mobilized, they received orders to take off, over the mountains spanning through Antarctica. This approach was truly unusual. Ryan and the crew flew straight through a secret air sampling station, violating the no-fly zone above. The aircraft had breached that, and everyone's lives were in serious danger. However, perhaps what Bree remembered most wasn't the peril of that flight, but what he saw while flying. There was a wide chasm gaping over the ice right next to that secret air sampling station. Clearly, there had been a lot of activity here over the years. Ryan and the crew couldn't explain why there was an ice chasm in the middle of this place, so large. After safely returning the patient, the crew was still summoned to the command office. In the room was an officer they hadn't seen before. The officer questioned them about the decision to violate the no-fly zone that the crew had just made. Of course, the crew explained that they had no other choice. If they took a different route, the patient would have died. The officer began to pace slowly to think. Finally, they made the decision not to pursue charges, on the condition that Bree's team be under absolute supervision to prevent any leaks of secrets. Though he had never signed a non-disclosure agreement, he still felt uncomfortable with that. He had carried out hundreds of missions in Antarctica, seen UFOs, things so bizarre it seemed entirely normal. Brian agreed with the officer and paid no further attention to the giant ice chasm. A few months later, Bran happened to overhear some people talking about the mysterious air sampling station and the giant ice chasm during a mission. They spoke of encounters with some special guests there. Too curious to ignore, he approached and asked them about the guests. From their descriptions, these individuals not only informed Brian that the guests there were not human, but also revealed that the massive hole hundreds of meters wide was the entrance to a secret base. There, humans were collaborating with extraterrestrials on a special project. More accurately, they were learning everything from them. Sometimes, even human scientists had to use themselves as test subjects for research purposes. So, could it be that the rescued scientists from Mary Birdland had also had to use themselves to serve the research, or what? If that were true, it wouldn't be hard to imagine the horrors they had to endure. Perhaps that's why, as soon as they had the chance, they cried out and longed for home so much. There are so many strange stories about Antarctica that we couldn't possibly cover them all in a short video. If you want to delve deeper into one of today's stories, or any other story, let me know in the comments section below the video. I know that the Antarctic stories are often vague and lacking in authenticity. However, as long as the Earth exists, there are still discoveries to be made, new things to learn. On behalf of the team, I thank all viewers for their companionship and support in today's video. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos. Wishing everyone a wonderful day with their families.